What's going on, everybody? We are back with the Atlantic Files, the number one podcast on the number one division in the NBA, brought to you by the Underdog Sports Podcast Network. As always, I am back with you all, Alex Fishbein. I will have Dennis Clausen back. I will have Mike Bash back. But for this very first episode that we're coming back to you, we're just going to do a little solo dolo right now. And we are officially back. Yes, that is right. We are here. We have returned. We will be here for the season. We took a little bit of a hiatus. I had my first child, and it's been quite a whirlwind life-wise. For those who have been fans of the podcast, you probably noticed that my background has changed and everything too, because the house is different. So excuse the boxes while they're still there, but we will have this looking nice and clean not too long after today. But I want to give you guys a little bit of notes here. We will be changing up our recording schedule as well. So we'll be having podcasts out there for you guys on Mondays and Wednesdays. So we're going to have 2 episodes a week, but those 2 episodes are going to be a little bit shorter. So there'll be a little nice bite size for you guys who might be listening on your way to work or maybe listening at work, so on and so forth. But we'll have a couple episodes. We're getting back to our roots. We're focusing on the Atlantic Division in most of these episodes with some other around the NBA things sprinkled in, of course. But without further ado, we are going to get into the Atlantic Division preview, because today I'm recording on Tuesday is NBA opening night, and no Atlantic Division teams are playing tonight. They will start Wednesday. So that means we can do the preview now. And like I said, without further ado, I want to jump into the intro. We're back, baby.
Welcome to the Atlantic Files, where humor and vibes collide. Nets the Sixers, the king of the court, jokes that hit you one more. Atlantic Division, we own the scene. Comedy, food talk, every routine. Mike Bash, Klaus and Fishbein on the mic, making you laugh every episode right. Game is strong, court to kitchen, we're never wrong. You know what time it is, it's time for the Atlantic Files.
What is going on, everybody? Also, shout out to NBA Threads. Great community. Season 3 on the way. Can't wait to hang out with everybody over there and talk some hoops. Glad to be back on the microphone. Finally have gotten that itch again after having our son. So it just feels right to be back. It feels so good to be back. And shout out Underdog for hosting us. Really giving us a place to post everything that we have, and really being a part of this podcast for a really long time now. So shout out Chris and the Underdog Podcast Network. You guys are awesome. We appreciate you. Thank you for having us back as well. For all of you watching on YouTube, hello. We appreciate you guys as well. And Spotify, Apple, anywhere you listen to us, we appreciate all of that. Any support at all. If you tell a friend, whatever, we appreciate it. But as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. So what I want to do is I want to talk basketball. Like, I want to get into this thing. And I went back to my roots, as I always do here when, bringing something back that's near and dear to me. So, of course, I brought back the good old notebook and everything that I really was using from when I was in college, when I first started this podcast. So we are going to talk some Atlantic Division preview. So the first team we're actually going to bring up, no, it's not the 76ers. It is actually the New York Knicks. So last season, the Knicks finished 51-31. They were, one of the top teams looking like going into the playoffs, and they finished 3rd in the East. Tibbs had the team running very well, like a well-oiled machine over there. The defense was looking decent. The offense was ranked 9th in the league. Actually, so was the defense in terms of points per game and points per game given up. They ended up losing in the conference finals to the Indiana Pacers. They lost 4-2 in that series after winning 4-2 in both of the series prior to that over Detroit and Boston, there was obviously the usual guys, you know, Josh Hart, Bridges, OG, Brunson, Towns, Miles McBride stepped up a lot. He had some very good games off the bench and also in some spot starts. Then you also had uh after like those six, you kind of had a mix of a lot of different people. Mitchell Robinson wasn't exactly healthy all season. He only appeared in 17 games. DeLone Wright appeared in 14. Then you had Landry Shamet, who was there. Cameron Payne got thrown in a bunch. Jericho Sims was playing 39 games. They even had Tyler Kolek appear in 41 games. Like they had a lot of guys that kind of rounded out the roster, but ultimately the depth wasn't enough to push them over the hump into the playoffs. And so let's talk about their like who they've resigned additions. We're going to kind of go in this order for all five teams, who they resigned, the additions they brought in outside of the draft, the people they've drafted, and then their big departures and any keynotes going into this season. So for the Knicks, what I'll do for those watching here on YouTube, I'm going to bring up their basketball reference just so you guys can see a nice picture here of the roster itself. But essentially, this is what we got going on here for the Knicks. Their re-signings happen to be Mikal Bridges. They signed him to an extension, and then they picked up the team option for Ariel Hukporti. So there's um two re-signings, and so it wasn't like really that much of a busy re-signing off season. Additions wise, they added Jordan Clarkson, they added Gershon Yabusele. So I think those two were huge in terms of depth signings. Those are two guys that you'll love to have coming off the bench and providing any type of minutes, especially in the playoffs as well. I mean, I know Yabusele didn't get the chance to really show his experience and what he can do in the playoffs since the Sixers completely fell apart and everyone got hurt and pretty much crumbled and burned. But we can see in his time in the Olympics and everything that he is able to provide and like provide some good minutes and be a solid veteran. So I'm very curious to see both of those guys and what they bring to the table. In terms of the draft, they just added Mohamed Diawara with the 51st pick, and then key departures. So key just is in like these are guys that have played last year or might even be like a good veteran presence they had, so on and so forth. So they lost Precious Achua, they lost Campaign, PJ Tucker, DeLone Wright. They didn't they just didn't re-sign these guys, so that's how they lost them there. But of course, the biggest thing we have to talk about with the Knicks this season is Mike Brown heading in as the new head coach. Finally, they have parted ways with Tibbs. I know on this show, we've talked about Tibbs a lot. We said how he is a solid coach. We didn't feel like he was the championship caliber type of coach, but a one to always keep your team in the mix. I mean, it was both fault of kind of like the way this team was set up, but also both fault of Tom Thibodeau to really say that, like, hey, this is the depth that we need, and we need you to play these guys. But at the same time, even if there was some depth to be played, it took Tibbs a few seasons to get there to actually play them. His whole brand of, the starters run them until they can't run anymore for the first couple seasons, and then they flamed out in the playoffs because they were just playing way too much. And then last year he started to actually trust his bench unit a little more, but then they were non-existent in the playoffs. So enter Mike Brown, and now we have an interesting dynamic here to kind of see how the offense and defense changes, how the potential of not only the starting five but intermingling the bench unit is going to look with this team. His latest tenure, obviously, the last 3.5 ish seasons, or 2.5 ish seasons, actually, with the Sacramento Kings. 2022-23, he led them to a 48-34 record, made the playoffs as well, but lost in 7 games in their first round. And then 23-24, he led them to 46-36 record. And then last season, they started off 13-18 and decided to part ways with him, even though from there on out, Sacramento really didn't look all that good anyway. So I wouldn't blame that whole thing on Mike Brown. But overall, I think this team is going to be very fun to watch. I think Mike Brown's going to kind of unlock a new dynamic, and it makes the Knicks very interesting in terms of actual championship potential. So I do like them a lot. I think that it's going to come down to probably them and the Celtics, even though the Celtics are down some big pieces. So with that being said, let's talk about the Celtics here. And I will bring up their roster as well. So obviously, the biggest thing with the Celtics is Jason Tatum not being there anymore. Well, I shouldn't say not being there anymore. He's obviously still with the team and everything, but he will not be playing most likely for the season. There was a lot of rumors, and he talked about hoping that he could play at some point this season later on. So it's all about keeping afloat and potentially trying to make the playoffs for a Tatum return, but then you obviously will have a little bit tougher of a road down the playoff path to the championship, being a lower seed if that's what ends up happening. However, let's look at, so last year the Celtics were 61-21. They had a very solid year. They ended up losing to the Knicks, obviously, but the injury to Jason Tatum kind of like overshadowed that whole playoff run for them. And they didn't re-sign anybody. They didn't sign anyone to extension. They literally didn't re-sign anybody. Well, as of like when I was kind of taking these notes, at least. And then their additions outside of the draft, they brought in Chris Boucher, Luca Garza, Josh Minot, Anthony Simons, the biggest one there being that trade with Drew Holiday, sending him over to Portland and everything. So that was their biggest addition for the entire offseason. I like the additions of Boucher and Garza and Minot. Like I like them as depth guys and some guys that, might get some minutes here and there. But obviously that's like Simons is going to be the one that if Tatum, can't play the whole season, Simons is either going to be the important X factor to help them stay afloat and get to the playoffs, or he's going to play well enough that the Celtics are like, hey, we can trade you now to get either multiple pieces or a bigger piece that we need. So when Tatum is back, we can make this big run through the playoffs and to the championship. Through the draft, they got Hugo Gonzalez, Amari Williams, Max Scholga, and then the departures. JD Davison was the guard they had on the two-way for a few seasons. I think it was either 2 or 3 seasons. They finally parted ways with him. It looked like Davison was really going to at some point crack that NBA lineup and like get a standard contract, but it just never ended up happening. It probably would have had the best chance this year without Drew Holiday and everybody and Tatum and stuff like that, but obviously it just wasn't in the books. Then Drew Holiday being another big departure, Al Horford being a very big name as a departure there. Even though obviously Horford is in the later stages of his career, he was not only a fan favorite, but I mean, an important veteran piece to this entire team. A guy that really, I mean, say what you want about calling people glue guys, but Horford was like the ultimate glue guy. And not having him, I think, is going to be very interesting, especially in this front court when you have people like Kada and Tillman and Garza, Chris Boucher. These are guys that, don't have all that much experience, especially deeper into the postseason and things like that. I know some of them were on the championship roster, but at the same time, these aren't guys that you're going to look to as a veteran presence like an Al Horford. And even that, you lose Luke Cornett, you lose Kristaps Porzingis. So a lot of that center depth and front court depth really, really takes a hit, especially with Jason Tatum not being there to also play the power forward. So there's, I think that this team is still going to be very scrappy. They're still going to win a bit of games, but I'm just curious to see how they really put things together. I think that Peyton Pritchard will probably, put up some huge stats that he never has before. He's finally most likely going to be starting most of the season when he never has. He was sixth man of the year. He really improved his game a lot, especially after like a couple seasons ago requesting a trade. Jaylen Brown will be finally the number one guy, undoubtedly the number one guy. So curious to see if he can consistently carry that type of load on his shoulders. And then Derek White is going to have to be Derek White times two. He's going to have to do a little bit more than he already was. And he was already the Swiss Army knife type of guy. So I'm curious if like all of these guys can kind of level up even one more time when they've kind of been doing that already. Missoula will definitely have his work cut out for him. I'm curious to see how often we're going to see him just looking super pissed off on the sidelines and answering questions that from the press that he just completely loses it. It's a la the one he was just asked about like his offensive strategy and stuff, and he said, "Find the 2-on-1s, attack the 2-on-1s," and freaked out. He's like, "I've said this every season. This is our strategy, and that's all we're gonna do." Like, okay, we get it. You relax. Um, but overall, I mean, I think the Celtics. I I have a sneaking suspicion that they're going to be fine. However, the wheels could fall off. I like Anthony Simons. However, he has known nothing but tanking basketball. He's just wasted away in Portland. And like I said, I like his game. I like his style, but it just doesn't scream like helping a team make the playoffs. He was the 24th overall pick in 2018 by Portland. He in his rookie season played 20 games, and that was the 2018-19 season. This is when the Trailblazers actually did make the playoffs. They lost in the Western Conference Finals to Golden State. They lost 4-0. This is when they had obviously Dame Lillard, Myers Leonard, CJ McCollum, Nurkic, Evan Turner was still there, Gary Trent Jr. Like they had like a frisky young team. And then his second season, he plays 70 games, the 2019-2020 season. And this is when they finish 8th in the West. So they do make the playoffs, but just barely at 35-39. And they lose in the first round 4-1 to the Lakers. And then you get to his third season where he played 64 games and they finished 6th, make the playoffs, lose in the first round. And then I believe since then he did not make the playoffs again. Yeah, then they were 27-55, 33-49, 21-61. And they were 36-46 last season. So throughout these seasons, he has stepped up his stats each time, especially in the scoring department. Well, outside of last season, he took a little step back at 19 points per game. His 3-point percentage has been solid. He's like over the past few seasons, he's hovered around like 38, 37%. So he can shoot the ball when given the opportunity. I mean, right now with Tatum out, he probably will be able to get like 16 shots up a game like he did last season. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of like how he really does alongside some of these guys like Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, who are probably also going to be able to get more shots up. Now we take it over to none other than the Philadelphia 76ers. Obviously, for those who have been listening, near and dear to my heart, one of probably the most I don't know if polarizing is the correct word, but a team that really could go either opposite of the spectrum from tanking really bad to championship contender, because we saw them 2 years ago supposed to be a championship contender before Joel Embiid got hurt, still played through the injury, still had a really good shot to win that series against the Knicks, but ended up coming up short. Then last season, you have utter disaster, and the entire team, including the young guys in Maxey and McCain, and those guys fall apart. Everyone gets hurt. They get the number 3 pick in the draft because that's how bad that year was. And they end up drafting, I mean, one of the best players in the draft that you can get at VJ Edgecombe. And he's looked every bit the part so far through summer league, through preseason. He's going to be super exciting. I'm super hyped to see VJ Edgecombe play. But before we get into kind of that part, so last season they were 24-58, obviously missed the playoffs. They get the number 3 pick. They re-signed Andre Drummond, who actually picked up a player option, which is why he re-signed. They re-signed Justin Edwards, Eric Gordon, Quentin Grimes held out for the longest time, but he just accepted the qualifying offer, so they're going to have to go back to the negotiating table after this season to see if they can actually sign him long term. Then they brought back Kyle Lowry, and Kelly Oubre Jr. also picked up his player option, so he's back as well. They added Trendon Watford outside of the draft, and in the draft, they got VJ Edgecombe at number 3, and then Janai Broom in the second round. Key departures, I mean, you can call them key departures if you want, but it's really just guys that ended up getting the playing time because everybody was injured. So Jared Butler's out, Ricky Council, who I really thought was going to carve his niche role in the NBA, and it just would not work out. I just really thought he was going to figure out that little switch and be like, "Oh, this is what I need to do." But anytime he like got a little too much free reign, it just all hell broke loose. Or he just like wasn't doing enough to really like constitute getting the minutes. So then you're kind of stuck as Nick Nurse. You're kind of stuck in the middle of like, well, I want to play you because you give me these flashes of brilliance as a role player, but at the same time I don't, because the outside of those flashes, it's probably going to hurt us and lose us games. So they finally cut ties with Ricky Council. Lonnie Walker, the hometown kid, they cut ties with him as well. And Gershon Yabusele, they did not have the money to re-sign him and Quentin Grimes, and it looked like they made their minds up and went with Quentin Grimes because they let Yabusele walk pretty early on to the Knicks. And there was mutual interest reportedly there, but like I said, in terms of the cap aprons and everything like that, I mean, all the money they're owing to Paul George, Embiid, and Maxey, you have to worry about Jared McCain. Not like this season, but like starting next season and the season after. There's then like VJ Edgecombe now. You're gonna have to, if he is as good as advertised, you're definitely gonna have to worry about his contract. But that obviously that's later on down the road too. So this season opener for the Sixers is probably the healthiest they've been in like 2 seasons. Embiid is not on the injury report. Paul George, Trendon Watford, and Jared McCain are all ruled out. McCain tore his UCL in his thumb. Paul George still recovering from his knee. And I forget the exact injury for Trendon Watford, but I'm not sure how many minutes he's going to get right off the bat anyway. I would like to see him get some good time off the bench because I think he's good enough to really give the team some quality minutes as a role player. And if Justin Edwards has not taken the step that everyone expected him to, which is kind of evident from summer league and preseason, he really didn't look that good, then Trendon Watford becomes a little bit more important. I'm not sure why Lonnie Walker is still on this roster because the Sixers did not retain him. He's actually playing overseas now, so I don't know why he's on there. Either way, I like some of the two-way guys. I like Jabari Walker. I thought he had some decent moments over in Portland. Dominic Barlow and Hunter Salas, I thought they had some nice moments in summer league and in preseason. So I like having those guys on as two-ways to maybe move up if, I don't know, maybe Kyle Lowry retires in the middle of the season because I have no idea how many minutes he's actually going to play. I feel like it's not going to be that many. I think he's going to just kind of pop it in and out of there for little spurts at a time when Nick Nurse kind of needs like a floor general or just a veteran on the court. That's really my guess. I think he's going to be more of like a Udonis Haslem and just kind of be that player coach. So yeah, I'm really looking. The things here I'm looking for are Embiid and Paul George. Can you play, especially Embiid? Can you play like 50-ish games and be ready for the postseason? They've already said back-to-backs are not likely, so his max games reaches like 66 because there's 16 back-to-backs. I'm already taking out another 16 just due to, I don't know, injury management, rest, blah, 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 blah. So 50-ish games. Can you give that many and be at least like 75% of what you were in those games? And then again, be healthy for the playoffs. Paul George just needs you to be healthy and give whatever you can give at this point because with signing a max contract, if you can't give anything, then this team is going to be sunk as it is. Oubre, love the role player, the role that he plays. Drummond, can he come in as a backup and give you good rebounding minutes and some solid defense? Adem Bona, I would love to see the step he takes. The international play that he had was really good experience. There's already been some experimentation with playing Bona and Embiid together, which I think is very interesting, especially given with Bona's defensive prowess and Embiid, who like his defense was pretty elite at one point, but now with all of the injuries, I'm not sure he's going to be as intimidating and banging bodies down low anymore that like he used to. So I'm very curious to see that type of lineup actually work out. Maxi, we all know what he can do, but can he carry the number one guy, attitude and everything and actually win games? He's carried the number one guy thing last year, but that didn't equate to winning all the time. McCain, can he stay healthy now and show those flashes again and maybe be more consistent with showing them? These are all questions I have, and that is all going to mold how this season actually unfolds. So we'll see how everything goes. The X factor here for the Sixers is plainly and flat out health. That's all it is. Like that, like the other ones had like new coach. Tatum tears his Achilles and he's out for the first like time in a long time. This is literally just, can anybody stay healthy and win games? That's really all it is for the Sixers. So speaking of not winning games, we go down to the Brooklyn Nets. They were 26-56 last year. There's not much like better news on the horizon. I wish for all you Nets fans out there, I could tell you like, "Hey, don't worry guys, this year's going to be so much better and you're going to make the playoffs and so on and so forth." But yeah, I don't see that happening at all. The moves they made, like trade wise and stuff, were there's some good ones, but also some confusing ones that I thought. So let's get into it. So they re-signed Tyrese Martin. That was a team option. Daron Sharp, Cam Thomas, Zaire Williams, Jalen Wilson, also team option. Additions through trade, there was Haywood Highsmith, Michael Porter Jr., and they brought in Terrence Mann. Through the draft, they brought in, let me hold on here. Through the draft from BYU, I want to, Yegor Diomin. That's how the pronunciation says on Basketball Reference. I just wanted to try to get that correct because I've been trying and I'm still not sure if I butchered it. So I apologize. However, they drafted him, Nolan Traore, Drake Powell, Ben Serif, and Danny Wolf. And then departures, they lost Tosan, they lost Cam Johnson, Keon Johnson, D'Angelo Russell, Drew Timmy, Trendon Watford, Dariq Whitehead, DeAnthony Melton. Now, I this is where I was a little confused. So let me just check something out here because when they were, I mean, waving people and not bringing them back, Tim, however you say it, I was very surprised that they didn't bring him back for at least this coming season. I thought he played pretty well in the limited amount of time that he got. I mean, he only played in 9 games. He started in 2 of them, saw 28.2 minutes a game, shot 44% from the floor, 26-ish percent from 3, 12 points a game, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.7 turnovers. Obviously, that's pretty like a lot of garbage time stuff of, like they knew they were tanking, they're trying to get a better pick, so on and so forth. I just thought he played well enough to deserve like this coming season because like what else, like you can't possibly think that you're competing for a playoff spot with this roster. I would be floored if they actually made the playoffs with this. Haywood Highsmith just suffered a setback in his injury. Terrence Mann, like the trade for Michael Porter Jr. was just a little odd to me. Like, I know he's not like that old, he's 27, but I just feel like he doesn't fit the timeline of this team at all. The only other person up there around his age is Terrence Mann, who they also brought in. He's 29, even though he's a 6-year pro also. So again, there, Haywood Highsmith, I'm pretty sure he's 28. So the 3 guys they brought in are all older than all of the main guys on this team. Actually, I think they're the oldest on the team overall. Now that I think, unless Nick Claxton, no, Nick Claxton's 26. So yeah, they brought in 3 guys who are the oldest on the team now. So by the time that the rest of these guys get better and probably are looking to make the playoffs, Michael Porter Jr., Terrence Mann, those guys probably won't even be here. And I'm just surprised they didn't flip Michael Porter Jr. as soon as possible, right after they got him for Cam Johnson, to bring in some younger guys right away and try them out and see how the season goes. I just think that it's kind of a waste for them to roll those guys out. And I mean, maybe their thought process is like, hey, these are our veteran presence guys. But usually that's like, later stages of their career, not like right in the heart of their prime. So it was just an interesting slew of off-season moves. The negotiation with Cam Thomas too, there was a minute there where it looked like they weren't going to get anything done with him. and it looks like the relationship between the team and Cam Thomas isn't the best. So I don't even know how much longer he's going to be on the team. The Nets are just very confusing right now. And they're obviously tanking. We know that part, but I just don't understand what the path forward is. Like, there's not one guy you're like, okay, that's definitely going to be one of their key core guys moving forward. It's just kind of like, looks like we'll try to collect some more picks and see where we go and see how the lottery balls roll. And if they don't roll, then I have no idea where it goes from there. So and they have a ton of guards. Let's see. Point guard shooting, like listed point guard shooting guards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the entire small forward, power forward, center in the entire front court. There's 9, but there's 8 guards, and I mean we got 4 of them are rookies. Then you got Tyrese Martin, who's in his second. ETN, who's a two-way, but is in his he's technically in his second. Martin's in his third. Then there's Cam Thomas. I just don't. Oh, and Terrence Mann. I don't get it. I don't understand. They don't make any sense, and I don't think they're going to be that fun of a team to watch either. So sorry, Nets fans. I hope it gets better for you guys. And so that brings us to the pride and joy of Canada. And I'm actually on the flip side very excited for the Raptors this season because I think they're going to be a very solid squad. Scotty Barnes is always fun to watch. I mean, he's been improving every aspect of his game each season and is still getting better. And they bring in Brandon Ingram last year, and now he's healthy enough to start the season. You get a little bit of a improvement year from Agbaji, from Magba. Jamal Shed had some very good uh, flashes and everything in there. Jacoby Walter had some decent times. Grady Dick, we can see, is a decent shooter off the catch, and so he'll play well when these guys are healthy. But getting into kind of like this whole preview thing we have going on, they were 30 and 52 last year. Injuries, other than the Sixers, like the injuries for the Raptors were just like off the charts. I mean, Ingram wasn't playing. Barnes had a few. Quickly missed like half the season. Even Pirtle missed a good bit. RJ Barrett missed a good bit. Like it was literally every single player you could think of was missing games. They had to really reach down to the depths of the waivers and find people just to throw out there so that they had enough people on the court. It was rough, and I feel for them. The injury plagued seasons are the worst ones because they're ones you're like, okay, we'll have some hope here if we can, if these guys can improve, maybe we'll sneak into the play in or so on and so forth. But then injuries happen and it becomes like just not fun to watch because a lot of the time it's just a slog. A lot of these guys aren't even going to be on the team in a few weeks when the next guy gets healthy. It sucks. It really does. But they re-signed Jakob Pertl to an extension. They re-signed Garrett Temple. When I saw they re-signed Garrett Temple, I was like, wow, I haven't heard his name in ages. I forgot he was even on this team. He's been in the league for apparently 15 years. I thought he was long gone. But hey, shout out to Garrett Temple. You're still going. Additions, they brought in Sandra Mamu Kalushvili. I knew I had it there for a second, and then I lost it, and then I was like, "Oh, let me make sure I'm saying it right." Technically, I'm counting Brandon Ingram as addition. They added him last year. He didn't even play. He's going to play for the first time. I'm counting him as an addition. Through the draft, they got Colin Murray Boyles and Elijah Martin. Departures, they just lost Chris Boucher and AJ Lawson. All in all, really not that big of a departure list. Now, I'm just curious. I like this whole squad. I'm curious to see how they go with Coach Darko. Like it I like some things that I saw from him last season. I kind of like the way he leads his team and how he has their back in like press conferences and things like that. So overall, I like this team a lot. I think that the Raptors are going to be one of the more fun league pass watches in the league this year. And so that's what brings us to the overall like division preview here. So I'm gonna let Dennis and Mike give me their previews or division predictions when they come on the pod again for our next episode. But I have the Knicks in first, the Sixers in second, the Celtics in third. No. Erase that. Erase that. Sorry. Knicks, Knicks, Raptors, Sixers, Celtics, Nets. And I'm not saying that the Celtics are going to have a losing record because they like very well all four teams could have winning records. If I remember correctly, it happened not that long ago. I want to say it was like two-ish seasons ago that they had. Well, three of them had winning records 2 seasons ago. That was Celtics, Knicks, Sixers. One of them will be like right around 3 seasons ago. Celtics, Sixers, Knicks, and Nets all had winning records. So that's what I'm kind of looking at. I just don't feel right saying that the Celtics will not have a winning record, despite the fact that like their team does look quite different. But that's what I'm going with the division. And I just want to say thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning back in. We appreciate you coming back and listening, watching the return of the Atlantic Files. We, like I said, will be recording. We'll be pre-recording this time around, so we'll be doing like the night before. But episodes will be coming out Mondays and Wednesdays, and they'll be a little bit shorter each one of those. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. Make sure you check us out. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, everywhere you get your podcasts, and check out the Underdog Podcast Network. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Peace.